everybody, G-Force41 here with another PGA Tour 2K25 golf course design video for you. This is a special one. This is my port over of Commonwealth Country Club Newton. In the game, it's Commonwealth CC parentheses Newton, just to be specific. And this is a special one to me. This is a touched up version of the course I created for PGA Tour 2K23. And it is a historical recreation done by hand of a semi-lost Donald Ross course. The course exists today as Newton Commonwealth Golf Course. Most people in the area know it and have played it. And it doesn't quite have the reputation it deserves because it exists in a very truncated form than it existed in the 40s and 50s, for which I've created this version. So this is the course as it existed in its fullest, most expansive form in the 40s and 50s. It has quite the history. I'm going to try to go through most of it through the video. But I want to just kick off by saying, yes, the course went down to Chandler Pond. There you see Chandler Pond. Most of the land in this picture that you see here was sold off to development. That's actually Brighton proper, which is Boston, the city of Boston, technically. Most of the course is Newton. So in front of this first tee box here and off to the left, which is the course, which, as you kind of know most of it today, with some of this land was sold off as well. That's Newton. And off down there towards the water is actually Brighton, and that's all gone. It's all parking lot and all housing, other than what is in this course, the 17th hole that exists is 10 and 11, and there is a short 3 over there, but that's not where the green is now. So I'll explain all that to you. But this is the first hole. This was a famous first hole. As you can see, the clubhouse is up on top of the hill. That's Wobbin Hill. That makes total sense. Look at the view. Can you imagine what a beautiful country club this was? It was very, very famous in the day. This was a social and political epicenter of Newton, Massachusetts. Okay, it was a big deal. It really was. So socially, there were, weddings and things like that at this club. But there was a big political presence here at this club. So you could see how cool it was, because what they did in the day. You can see this is the first hole, and then it loops around. There's 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 here. On a Sunday afternoon, they would play matches and just play the corner, as it's called. You can see the patio off to the right there. And they would go down and say, just play these holes in the corner and then come back up for a drink. And everybody could see pretty much all the action from that patio. So it was a pretty cool deal. All right, so this first hole, I'm going to get right to it in a second. But that exists today as the current 13th hole, the big downhill par 4 that says do not hit driver, because basically the parking lot's behind it. But this course, just a brief history, and then I'll get right to the golf. It started in the late 1800s as a 9-hole course. There was a boom in Newton, Massachusetts. It's an important part of Massachusetts golf history where 6 courses were created in Newton. And this was one of them. And it now stands as 18 holes because Donald Ross was hired in 1920 to expand it to 18 holes. And he did that. He did an adjustment, so to speak, in 1923. They still did not own all of this land up until 1941 when they bought the remaining parcels of land. There was a parcel over there right in the middle that cut through almost diamond shape that they didn't own, that they purchased and basically had the course in the form you're going to play it in today. So there's all sorts of crazy history here, but really famous people played here. Francis Ouimet played here all the time, won championships here. Sam Snead played here. There was a famous match in 1941 between baseball greats Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb for charity. We'll talk about that a little bit. And Donald Ross was a member himself. He lived up the street in Brookline. So this was a big deal back in the day, and no one has any information on it. It took me forever to put this together for you. I was happy to do it, but there were scant photos. I had to use aerial photos, which are kind of grainy, topographical maps, and piece together old news articles using newspaper.com from the Boston Globe. So it took me months to do this, and happy to bring it back to you here, PGA Tour 2K25. I made some refinements, but without further ado, let's get right to the golf. All right, welcome to the first tee. There's Cyber Jack. I kind of dressed him up in his 40s attire as best as I could. But you can see the clubhouse had some viewing areas. It had basically porch and a deck. And this is a big downhill par 4. It is today the 13th hole. For a while, it was the 18th hole. The current tee box is up a bit. This tee box is up behind the current tee box, up basically in the housing. You can actually still see where the valley was. It was pretty interesting. I went there in the spring to kind of re-scope out the whole land scene there. Yeah, it's drivable. There's water in front of the green today just to prevent people from driving it, because behind the current green is basically the parking lot. That's not the original green. So the green today on 13 is not the original. The tee box is not the original, and it plays about 260, 270. Okay, so the current green is probably somewhere around here, but this played about 350 yards down the hill. So this in the game is drivable, right? But in those days, people didn't hit the ball 300 yards. So the green tees are the original tees that I have from the Boston Globe confirmed. Plays about 6,240 yards. I'm going to play the blue for you just to give you the feel from the, just for the game's perspective, because we all hit the ball so long. But if you want to have some fun, I suggest playing the green tees and either, challenge yourself not to use driver or use one of the golfers that are shorter hitters to see how the strategy really did play out back in the day, because it is a Donald Ross design course for the most part, and there is some interesting challenges and holes here. I did this just to show you how much fun it is from the blue tees. These are fictional tees I drew back. They're kind of similar to, well, they're not similar to the old days, but they will give you a much better playing experience, just, given the distance we all hit these days. So this is it is 100 feet downhill. I use the topical maps. You can drive this green. You can score an ace on the first hole, 350 yards. There you see the original bunkering around it. And that's the tee for the 17th, and that's a lost green. This is a crazy course. So let me get going, because I don't want to lose your attention, because this is so unique and fun. So if you drill one like I did, you might see you got a chance at this. You got a chance at this. Get up there. Not bad, huh? Not a bad way to start. I started with the wind west on purpose because I wanted to show you how much fun that tee shot is. But yeah, you could definitely see how this was just an amazing, cool course. So the match, just to get back to the basics, between Ruth and Cobb, there are a lot of pictures kind of, looks like from the first and second hole. It was to benefit the USO and a charity for the Babe. There you see that's kind of, well, I'll get back to that in a second. I want to get off track for you. The what was it called? It was called the Golden Rule Farm Home. It was a home for boys in need, and it had to relocate due to, I think, like flood concerns. They had to basically move the home. So he's raising money for that, and then they raised money for the USO. So it was a big deal. There was paparazzi there. There are pictures. That is all over the newspapers if you want to look it up. So check it out. Ruth versus Cobb, 1941. There was a series of 3 matches. The first one was here, and cool stuff. All right. So this is a lost hole. This is the second hole. And it is in the area of what is now I got to get my routing correct in my brain, which is now the 14th hole. So it's the 14th hole is by the side of the clubhouse currently. That's a little thing around the pond that's still there, right? So there's Strong's Pond, right? And there's it's bigger. It was bigger in the old days, but there's a little pond and there's a little, it's like a 260-yard hole or something like that. It's silly now. Well, that's because this fairway used to be up in what is now housing. So this land was sold off. This tee box is back in the housing, back in Brighton, across the road that goes into the course and into the housing. And this tee box is up in the house. I'm sorry, this green is up in the housing now. So the current hole kind of was down in here somewhere, and it's all been like flattened a little bit. But it's crazy to see, because you could still see where this fairway was, just up above the cart path on the 14th hole into the housing. That's where the hole was. And you got some pictures of Ruth putting with Cobb on this hole. So there was 2 huge bunkers over here, and you can see this is a legit hole, folks. Okay, I moved the tee back, but it played up there somewhere in the 400s, 410, 420. And it was up the hill, right? Again, I used topographical maps from 1940, not current topographical maps. Learn to read a topo map. Actually, it wasn't that hard. But you can see this has got Ross's signature all over it, right? You're playing the angle up here. Big bunkering 40 yards, 50 yards in front of a green, right? To kind of mess with you a little bit. And I'll show you the picture in a second. Now, again, I had to guess at what all these greens did. I used, you know, kind of my knowledge of golf architecture, and, you know, physics. Like I always kid with you guys, use physics. And let me just try to take a little look around for you. There's a picture that I found basically from right here of Ruth and Cobb putting. It's in the Digital Commonwealth archives. They're copyrighted, so I don't want to put them on the actual video, but you can see that little slice of split fairway behind me and those 5 bunkers down on the hole there. That's the old 13th, and it's really cool stuff. So I tried to emulate that picture right here, and you can see the hill, you can see the 16th in the distance. Cool stuff. So I hope I got it right for you. I think I did. I've really worked hard on it, and it was great fun work, but it took me most of the beginning of last year to really put everything together for you. And you say, how do I know I got it right? Well, I actually coincidentally ran into people in my real life golf club that grew up on the golf course, working it as young boys and playing it their whole life. And as a matter of fact, their father worked and played the course for 80 years and has a plaque dedicated to him after the 9th hole, which is now the current 5th hole. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So this is the 3rd hole, the historic 3rd hole. This is the current, are you ready for it? This is the current 14th hole, right? So, I'm sorry, not 14th, 15th hole, which is a kind of a longish 4, which goes back out into right kind of where this past where this arrow is in the fairway. But guess what? This hole went all the way through to where the current 16th green is, which is a par 3 from the corner. And we'll show you that in a second. So this is one of the things I thought was really cool. So the current 15th hole as it exists, that green is just plopped in there to make 2 holes out of what was 1 in the day. So imagine playing the current 15th straight into the 16th green. So it's a big uphill shot. You'll see in a second what I mean. So this is kind of a simple fairway with a couple of hills in it. The challenge here was getting up and over these hills. If you miss it, it's a fairly short 4. You've got to have trouble getting up there because the hill's so big. And in the original, I did a video on the original. I told you a story of the gentleman, Mr. McKenna, that the guys were telling me about. He was caddying for Francis Ouimet. And Francis was looking at this green, thinking it was a 7-iron coming in. And he said, nope, that's a big hill. Whatever you think it really is, go up 1 club. And Francis went up 1 club at his suggestion and holed the dang shot right in there. So that was a pretty cool story I got out of them. I wanted to share it again. I put that in the other video, but I had to do it here. But here you can see where the current 16th hole is. In that corner is the tee box, and it plays as a par 3. That was wide open space. They owned it. It might have originally been a par 3 before this expansion in 1941. I can't tell, because the problem is this land right here in the middle, they didn't own it. It was kind of split, and I can't decide if it was a short 4 or it was kind of I don't know. It's so hard to figure out before 1941. But here it is as it existed in 1941, and there you see the Elliott Monument. That is still there today, and it is actually visible from the course when it's the trees are not in bloom. And I went there in the spring, and there it was. It is visible from this green, the old 3rd green or the current 16th green. All right, so you can see you're going up the hill. I got slim to no chance of getting it up there. So it's a fun little shot when you actually hit the fairway, because you've got to get it up the hill. You've got to judge it, and you tuck that pin back in the corner. There are 2 hole locations in that back corner. I'm playing the 1 hole location. I forget which ones they are exactly, so forgive me. But yeah, it's an interesting little shot. It's fairly short for a 5, but you got to get there. And that's what threw me off about this course. When I saw the routing in the Boston Globe, when I finally found it, and it took me weeks, it blew my mind. The yardages and the holes made no sense. No sense. And I couldn't figure out the routing, and I couldn't figure out how these holes, because it went, par 4, par 4, and 2 par 5s in a row. I said, how is that possible? And so I had to figure out the routing. It was fancy stuff. And I'll show you why in a second. That is the old 11th, the current 7th. Very pretty hole. One of the prettiest holes on the course, if not the prettiest. Still there today. So this is the 4th hole, and this is the current 8th hole. So you have to go. Let me try to show you. Whoops, sorry about that. All right, let me try to explain this to you. So you have to go from this green, which is the current 16th green, loop around the 17th tee, and go over to what's the 8th hole. And you say, Gary, that's crazy. How do you figure it out? It's the only way it works. And if you look on the old areas, you can actually see a path behind there. So in the historic 3rd, you have to go across the historic 12th tee and the historic 7th green. That's the current 2nd green, and over to the tee box over here, which is 8 to get to number 4. It's not that big of a loop. It actually makes sense considering the other loop you still do in current day, and then you gotta loop back after after 11, and we'll show you that. So I wanted to show you that because that was the trick here and the key to unlocking the routing, which took me forever. So I wanted to make sure I brought it to you. All right, let's go back to the tee. All right, so that's how we're here on the 8th. And this is a pretty hole and pretty tee shot. You can see the buildings in the distance to the state because that's Brighton. That's Boston proper, as I said, off in the distance. So I put some buildings out there for you. There's a big hill. I probably didn't even do the hill justice because the ball won't stay if I did it. But a big side hill fairway. And basically this section of the course is built on Wobbin Hill. It's a huge hill all the way up, and you'll see it. And there's this big jut of rough still there. So that's what you have to navigate. Now, do I have to navigate it myself? Not usually, but you could leave it here. Or you can go, if you're in the forward tees, you could probably try to get over it. So we'll show you kind of what happens. Even if you hit the fairway, you're going to have a big side hill lie. Which most of us, I'll be honest with you, really stink at. Because we don't practice it enough, if ever, at all. But I made it so you can kind of hit it that way, go down. It's fairly close, but it's so hard to get the true slope, right? Because I do not have LiDAR. I'm a PlayStation 5 designer, okay? So this is the shortest green. It's kind of D-shaped. A big drop off to the side. Again, very kind of Rossish. And got a thin neck leading up to the hole. Fun hole. I enjoy this hole a lot on the current course. And there's a few holes that are clunky because they're the made up holes, right? On the course, which is why the course gets a bad name. Get in there. Because it's a bit of the traditional shooting gallery, and we'll see why. And it was in disrepair for a long time. But the Sterling Golf runs it now. They do a fine job. And have brought it to modern standards, shall we say. But in the 70s, 80s, even to the 90s, it was sometimes in really bad shape. All right. So this is the current 9th hole, and it's a big downhill par 3. These bunkers are almost all there. This is super cool. So this hole exists almost as is. Those 2 bunkers in the fairway are there. Again, that's kind of a Ross thing. He likes to put those bunkers. He loves downhill par 3s, and he loves kind of those bunkers intersecting the par 3. Then I touched up this bunker a little. It was really hard to tell what was going on in the photos, but I looked at a bunch of old ones, and even into the 60s and 70s, it's kind of like slipper shaped is all I could say. And the other one, it was a little bit more, in the 2K23 release, it was a little more jagged. So I updated that. But this green is there. It's still, it's still there. It's very small green. You do play it from about 210 or so going back, and it's, a big downhill tee shot. So it's really cool, simple little green. And I got to get my yardage right, because it is a big hill. I got to go there. I'm going to give it a little loft and a little spin. Now this goes down towards what is the current clubhouse. Oh, he overshot it. And there you can see the hill lighting up to the old clubhouse in the old first hole, which is now 13. But let me show you that real quick. Please hold. Okay, I love this replay camera now because I can show you different things. So where that little grassy tee box is right there, I don't have an actual tee in it, but that's about where the first tee is now. And those benches are basically, especially those 2 benches together, I put those there on purpose. That's where the clubhouse is now, right? Because if you think about it, there's the clubhouse, there's the first green, which is, in the area of where the current 13th green is. And that is the first hole, which is the old 6, which we're playing next. But just by perspective, I want to show you that's where the current clubhouse is now when you come in, down a valley right in the middle. Okay? But that's what changes the whole thing, right? Because the clubhouse, there it is, way up there. Pretty cool. And it was a huge clubhouse. I should have changed the clubhouse. That's one thing I didn't do in this version, because there are better clubhouses now. But I left it as is. And, you know, I went over these greens, all the current greens again. I took pictures of every green from multiple angles. Was trying to get it as accurate as possible. There you see the historic 16th, lost to time. That was amazing. I can't wait to show you that one. All right, we are on the current, I'm sorry, the 6th hole, which is the current first hole. And there you see the 2 benches I was referring to you, talking about on the last hole. And look where this tee box is. So when I first saw the whole listing, right, because I didn't have a routing or a scorecard. I just had a listing in the Boston Globe that lists the hole, the par, and the yardage. And it said 6,340. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what hole it was, because the current first hole plays about 270 yards from those, basically where those benches are, right? Well, if you look at it, this is how it plays, right, from the current tees. That's basically the first hole. The tee box, I finally figured out, is back in the trees behind where the current clubhouse is, off next to what you'll see is the 13th hole, the historic 13th hole. So what was interesting about this hole is it plays about 270 yards, and I couldn't figure out, it's drivable, if there was rough in front of it. And I confirmed with my colleague that there indeed was rough in here, for the same reason I put rough in the first version, to make it harder to drive the green. And he said, hat tip Sean, that he used to work on this hole with the superintendent, and they used to leave this rough nice and long and nasty for you. So that is confirmed. There's you know, just fairway leads up to the green now, but it was rough back in the day, and those bunkers are still there. They were actually changing the bunkers when I was there this spring, which I understand what they're doing it, bringing to modern standards, but some of them were very close to the originals. And I wasn't sure if they realized they were taking out original bunkering, when the modern trend is to go towards restoration. So I'm not going to try to drive it. You can see there's the 12th green behind it. That's the current 17th green. They are very close together, actually. Little drive and pitch. Sorry, I'm trying to get so much information out to you because it's just so interesting. I want to keep the video going, but there's just so much to talk about, because you're probably, if you know the course, you're looking at it like, what the hell's going on? Oh, bad putt. But it's such interesting stuff. There it is. Current 3rd hole, which you'll see coming up shortly. That is the historic 8th. All right, we're at historic 7, which is the current 2nd hole. And again, I should be putting graphics in on all of these holes to make it simpler for you. But this is a par 5, down over the hill into the valley with the creek cutting in front of it. This is probably, on the current course, the most interesting hole on the current course, probably the hardest, because you're going up that big hill with the creek in front of you. And it's kind of a little bit of a blind tee shot. That is like legit blind. I know we talk about this all the time, show your work. But that's pretty representative of the view you're going to get. And you've got to go way up the hill to the current green, which is just a big circle. And you can see those bunkers aren't there. You can see them. The outlines of some of these old bunkers are still there. So if you go walk up, you can see there's a big indented circle off to the left and off to the right. I mean, courses don't keep them because I guess there's upkeep. It's more expensive to keep all these bunkers. And, you know, it slows up play a little is the other reason sometimes they take them out. But I don't know why you wouldn't have those bunkers there. So if anybody from the current course is watching, put those bunkers back. It costs money to do that, I know. All right, so this is a tricky little tee shot. This tee shot always gave me fits in real life. Because, you know, especially in the old days, everything would wind up in those trees off to the right. And then you got to go up this huge hill. It's doable, but it's an interesting shot trying to get it up that hill and then stop it. So it makes it kind of fun. I just wish I was hitting the fairways better for you on these par 5s to show you these shots. And we're going to try to get up there. You got to give it a little extra juice when I'm in the rough, so I'm not going to give it more. But it's a pretty green from up here. It's just a classic. This has got to be a Ross, if you ask me. So this course, this hole's probably been there a long time. Then you can see the housing behind it. There's more, you know, modern houses back there now. I don't know when they were actually built. They might be the original houses. But I put a wood fence up there. There's kind of, you know, the wire fencing that you see. And there is the old 13th green. Love these new cameras once you learn to do them correctly. Great job, 2K Sports and team, giving us the cameras on this one. So this is the historic 8th hole, the current 3rd hole. This is there. This is pretty much as is. Like I said, there's housing off to the side. I put a wood fence in. Goes across that stream, which is there, and it's this teardrop-shaped green with 2 tiers, literally tear-shaped and kind of, you know, two tiers the other way, T-I-E-R-S. And back in here is still kind of a little base. It's like a field with a baseball field, so I put a little baseball field in there. Hope everybody notices that kind of stuff. That big, huge bunker's still there, and as you can see in this, there was no other hole back there in the corner. So when they got rid of a bunch of holes, they had to put holes in. They needed more holes. And there's right in this back corner, I'll put a graphic in, is a tee box and then another short 3. So you go 3 and then another short 3, 4. Well, that 4th hole never existed. And I can tell you, before I knew a damn thing about golf architecture and routing or Donald Ross, I knew that hole couldn't have been an original. It just, the tee box was a mat because you can't grow grass back there and those trees very well, and yeah, it's a pretty little green somebody put in, but it just kind of, like, you know, ruins the field a little bit. It's there now, but nothing you could do, right? You just had to stick that in there to make another hole. Pretty little green, but I could just tell it wasn't original. All right, so here we go. So this stream was hard to put in, especially in the oldest, because you're going down like 200 feet of elevation changes. So I had to change the elevation of the water, and it's not like they're giant waterfalls or anything, but there are little teeny waterfall streams around the course, and there is foliage kind of in the streams. There's just very tall grass, which I wasn't sure of in the first version, but I put in there anyway. All right, historic 15, there it is. Lost hole, crazy green, bunkering around the greens. All right, we are at the historic 9th hole, the site of the current 5th hole. And I got this, I really updated this path and updated this hill, because that's kind of what it looks like off the tee. Again, blind up and over the hill. And this is a 4. It's going to play pretty short with the 300-yard driving ability that you have, which you can see, those are in front of those green tees, the original. So that's really going to be short from the historic tees. But again, side hill. Fairway. I'm missing them for you. Maybe the hill will work to my advantage here. Kick that down. There you go. Kick that down. There you go. So there you can see the advantage of the side hill. Of course, built on a freaking hill. And before I go anywhere, right around there is where that plaque is to Mr. McKenna. So I put, now I can't write on the plaque, but I put a sign. It says stay on cart paths. But there's just a little garden there in between what is the 5th and the 6th hole now. And, you know, kind of back in there right by the tee boxes and the greens and stuff. So I put that in there for them because they were so generous with their time to help me put that in there. But it's pretty cool. It says to Mr. McKenna, Robert McKenna, he walked these fairways for over 80 years. So that's a cool tribute to have a plaque dedicated to you on a course with such significance in history. So awesome stuff. Take a peek at that if you're on the real course. And this is a small little green with this little tier. So this first pin I put on this little tier, if you played this hole, you know it's just got this tiny, tiny little tier in there. and it's a tiny green. All right, now the fun really starts, because this is the 6th hole, and this is where it's super cool and why I did this for you. And I'm going to go into the replay for you. Please hold and show you why. So I'm going to show you right around here. It's hard to tell from the pictures, but it was like a shared tee box with the first tee. It was back up there by the clubhouse, back in here. Well, why is this cool? Because the current tee boxes are somewhere in here. And this hole plays as the 6th hole, and it's about 276 yards with that crazy potato chip green in there. And if I can figure out how to put an overlay in here, I'll show you a picture of the current green. But it plays very straight. Well, why did they change this? One, they sold the land, obviously, up here, right? So the tee box is about 80 yards back of where it is and back up in the trees and the houses. So you can see that tee box is right next to the green. And it just changes the whole dynamic of this hole, because this is why the course is known as a bit of a shooting gallery. If you can imagine that, see where that tee box is, you can get hit with a ball coming off the other fairway coming into the green. Well, there's a big mesh monster or a big net there, so you don't get hit, because obviously people are flailing it right all day. But you can see that this hole goes out into this fairway, which is pretty much still there, but it curves around. It was a big hook around these trees into a green, which was much further left than the current green. The current green would be somewhere back behind those bunkers. So it was a little short of where the green is now and off to the left. What does it do? It changes the whole hole. You've really got to hook one around the trees, or lay up in that flat area and come in it that way. Otherwise, it just kind of plays a straight 260, 70 yards or something like that. But the problem is you'll see when I get back to the tee box, you can wind up in those trees, right? So let me go back to the tee box. So now you've really got to hook it around, and everything falls off into those trees. So the safe shot is down here in the flat area. And believe me, I've blocked so many balls into that little section of trees, it's beyond belief. Or you can really, now in this game, you can really try to drive and get it over the tree. Not much I can do about it, because you guys can just pound the ball all you want. But if you miss this, you're bounding way down there. So this is actually pretty hard to hold. And I'm just going to show you it by hitting a 3-wood, just for you-know-whats and giggles. Draw one around, that if you don't draw it enough, you're bounding down into the stuff, or worse. So, it's not the worst position to be in, but now you got to go up the hill. So I put those in there. This green was much simpler, not the crazy wavy potato chip thing. That green wasn't put until 1995. And I think it's because people were complaining, there were balls flying into their backyard and stuff like that. Not really sure. All right. So now this hole is awesome. This is a downhill par 3, the 11th hole. This is the current 7th hole. You can see that little structure over there, whatever that little kind of tower thing is. I put that in there. But this exists pretty much as is. Those bunkers are still there, but they're much smaller. So you can see the outline even on these, where these bunkers were much bigger. But you can totally, this is totally got to be an original, or an original Ross. This is very Ross-like, a downhill mid-length par 3 with kind of an Eden-esque quality with the 3 bunkers in front of it. There's water in front, not in back. But so it's kind of not quite an Eden, but very pretty hole, very pretty downhill par 3. I think the prettiest tee shot on the course, and I mean almost exists as is today. But you can see how this was a really cool 3 back in the day. What do I want to do? Maybe a choke down. There you go. And I just love this shot. Usually somewhere around a 7-iron, depending on exactly where the tee boxes are, I think. If memory serves correctly. I think I got this green pretty accurate. There it is. That's the lost 14th, which we'll be getting to shortly. Coming right around up to Chandler Pond. All right, so this is the 12th hole, which is the current 17th. So now you got to redo that loop that you did. Remember what I was talking to you about? So hang on, let me show you really quick. So now you got to go from this green, right? The green we just punt on, there I am. And I put a little, you can see the surface weathering I put in there. Got to back around what was the 7th hole, back around the green there and over to 12. And there, you remember, was the historic 3rd green. And I said you got to walk all the way. So that's the little crazy loop in there that makes it all work. So this is a very pretty 17th hole. The other interesting thing about this hole is that it is played 420 yards. The current hole plays about 370 yards and is up against the end of the property and a fence. So I said, how can that possibly be 420? It's back in what's now the housing. There was nothing there. If you look at the top of the old aerials, there really wasn't anything there. There's no other conclusion to draw on this other than the tee box was back in the houses, way back there, because the green is in the same spot. Now, the green wasn't always there because they didn't own that land. So that green was put in about 1941. That little swath of land was not owned until 1941. Oh, dear. I can't hit a fairway for you here today, folks. But, you know, I'm playing the course kind of like I do in real life. So I'm going to choke down a little bit. Today there's a big kind of like reservoir off to the right. Oh dear, stay up there. Which didn't exist. It was kind of all dry over there. That must be for maintenance and water for the course. Not sure when that was put in. But this is a pretty little hole right now. All right. I see 11 again. Here we go. This is the 13th hole. This is in the area of the 18th. Again, this is a lost hole or a semi-lost hole because this tee shot still exists, except the tee box is way up. I'm going to bring it back for you. Whoops. Tee box is somewhere right here next to the green, basically. Okay, still a big force carry. It's about 200 yards. It was a tough carry into the wind last time I played it. And you also see here this split fairway, where you kind of the bailout fairway. That was there. So that fairway that's kind of just off to the left, where if you don't want to try this force carry, because this is all kind of marshy land right now, that was there. So that was legit. And it's in the pictures, it's verifiable. The picture I was talking about from the 2nd green. Pretty cool stuff. Obviously, we don't need to worry about that with the way we can hit a ball today. But this played 520. The green, after I hit this tee shot, I'll show you, it was way back in the houses. So this was a huge, again, these are the things that just blew my mind. We're like, I have to make this course. So, you know, this is 18 today. And you could see where 18th green is somewhere around here. Because you remember what I said before, these benches, that's where the current clubhouse is. So the 18th green is somewhere in the vicinity of this. Well, if you think about this, you know, course the way it is today, the road comes in here. So that's way back in the houses up a hill. That's up a 30-foot hill. That bunker was on a hill. And I forgot to tell you this, off in the distance, this is where the old maintenance shed was. I believe they called it the barn, something like that. That was up on a hill. And in the old days, where that is now, that used to be the old ice house. So this whole thing, Strong's Pond here was called Strong's Pond because it was Strong's ice. So way back in the day, yeah, they had to make ice. These were all man-made. Strong's Pond was man-made, and as I believe Chandler Pond was, for the production of ice. I'm not kidding you. So if you think about the old days, they didn't have refrigerators and freezers. So where did they get it from? I don't know how that worked. Thank God I live in modern times, because I would have been losing my mind without refrigeration and a freezer. But, you know, hey, they managed. All right. So really cool green up here, surrounded by massive bunkers. And just super cool. You know, I figured out that tee box was up there from one of these old pictures, because you can see I had 4 people peering out onto the 6th fairway. So that's the 6th tee box. So just to get you familiar with the routing, because it is so hard just from the game to picture the routing. But again, this is why I just thought this was such a cool project to undertake, to show you all this. And there you can see just the land, how everything kind of floats together. There's the clubhouse. and 1. So this is the beginning of what we call the corner, as I talked about in the beginning of the video. I mean, this hole must have been magnificent. All right, so this is the lost 14th hole, something that just, when I saw this overhead, it just blew my mind that this course went down to the pond. This is all dense housing. We're talking Brighton, we're not talking mansions here. We're talking like dense condos type housing. Very simple hole around the trees. I couldn't quite figure out how it went around these trees, so I did the best I could. There's 2 bunkers out here, which makes sense, you know, from a Ross perspective. This is also a shared tee box with the second hole. Couldn't figure out where the hell the tee box was, but it was basically shared in the same area of the second tee box, which makes sense. Most of us would maybe be at risk of blocking one out here, and there's a bunker over there, and there's a few bunkers surrounding the green. Obviously, we all can hit 300 yards today, so we're going to hit it 300 yards, and I'm off to the right yet again. Saved by the slope once again. And there you can see the pond in Lake Street. Obviously, this is a big skating area back in the day when that froze over. There's some old pictures of skating around Chandler Pond. You can look that up. And there's Lake Street, and the green went right down up against the water. Pretty stuff. Couple bunkers surrounding the green. I had no idea what this green was like. Since it was so short, I gave it a little bit of slope, figuring probably did have to have some slope down towards the water. Nothing dramatic. But again, for playability and some realism, I did the best I could. There you go. But look at this view. Can you imagine putting... I mean, who would think in Newton, Massachusetts, you'd be having a beautiful putt like this? Technically, this is Brighton. Or Brighton. Who would think you'd have a beautiful putt like that on a green in Brighton? Now, I've lived in both, so I love Brighton and Newton. I lived in Newton for a long time, which is one of the reasons I'm bringing you this video. My wife still works in Newton. Just a wonderful community. And here is the lost 15th. I added that stone wall over there to the side. Why am I telling you this? Because I think you can still see the stone wall in Google Maps. If you go out in the Google Maps and, what's the name of the road? It escapes me for a second. Let me see. I have some notes here, so I won't forget these silly things. Oh dear, I forgot the name of the road. I think it's Lakeview Terrace or Lake Terrace Road. Anyway, going up into Udine Street, if you Google map it and go into that corner, you can still see there's a stone wall there, right where this hill is. So I put it in there because you think about it, it's a big hill going up to the houses on, I think it's pronounced Udine Road, U-D-I-N-E. I could not for the life of me tell if there was a bunker out here. There's a bunker in the 2K23 version. There's some sort of depression there in the fairway. So this is where I took advantage of the new terrain painting and just put in a little kind of dirt area there. And I put a maintenance truck. Maybe the only thing I can think of is maybe that's where they used to take grass, sometimes for the rest of the course where they needed to take patches of grass and turf. I don't know. We're going to show you what an interesting green this is in a second, but this is a classic New England dogleg around the trees and hills. Oh God, there's so many of these around here all the time that you can blow through it. You can see the tee box is way up on this one. This plays short, like 320 or something like that. For realism in the game, I put the blue tee way back here to make it more interesting for us big bombers. But again, play this with like one of the LPGA golfers or something that's hit it like 260 or 270 from the green tees. It'll be really cool. So now you can see now you think about it, this is this side of the hill. Now you're going straight up the hill. And so it's about 20, 30 feet up and surrounded by bunkers. And these are very interesting shaped bunkers, which are clear in a bunch of pictures. So I got them, I think, fairly accurate. This green went up pretty close to the housing that is there now. And it sloped a lot back to front. I believe it, as you can imagine, it's the side of the hill. I think I took it easy on you, but I did make your greens look natural. Back to front there. Okay, that's what I'm talking about, folks. Making your greens look natural. But again, a unbelievable lost hole. There is a picture I found of this hole. It's snow covered. Looking up from behind the screen out onto Chandler Pond. somebody with a like snow ski or something like that. And so if you look at these old Chandler Pond photos, if you're interested, you can find them. And can you imagine, look at these views. I mean, this is why I did. This is such a cool old course that you wouldn't think it. If you just know this course today, it's like, you know, because it's small, it's short. Fun. I mean, so you play with your buddies. It's buddy golf, densely populated. And like I said, the folks at Sterling Delph are doing a fine job and let me walk the course to take some pictures back in the spring. So thank you, gentlemen. Hopefully they're watching this because I'm going to send it to them. But there you see, these cameras really help show you the full scope of this thing. All right, this one I love. This is 16. This is one of the reasons I did is when I saw the overhead picture of this course, I couldn't figure out what the hell this thing was because of these trees. I couldn't tell that there's a tee box there. There's no fairway. What is this? There was just this green in the middle of the course. And I couldn't, because I said it couldn't be where the tee box actually is. It couldn't be because there were trees. Well, it's a shoot, right? There weren't that many trees. And it's a downhill par 3. Again, this has got to be a Ross gem. This is about 160 yards, I think, from the old tees. I've got it going about $180 from these tees. But downhill 3, surrounded by bunkers. Again, very Eden-like, with kind of Eden-esque bunkers in the front and a slight small Eden bunker in the back. And this very unique shaped green, and it's just like a platform. It's elevated. And you can even tell from the overhead picture because of the shadow going across it. The overhead aerial photo that I was working with was from like 1955, so it's black and white, but it was taken, I think, in the winter. And so the sun angle was low, which was actually a help. But you could see that it's kind of just this elevated green, even from that picture I was talking about from the way over from the second green. If you zoom in, you can see it's just kind of like this platform green. So just super cool stuff. And this is why I use it as a thumbnail. So you got to hit down the chute, and I put some planting in there. And hope I did it justice. But this is like, when I saw this, like, this is just such a beautiful green. Shame it's gone. This would be in the parking lot, probably past the parking lot in the housing now. And you can look at all this. There's something called Map Junction that you could find the old aerials and just slide back and forth between the current. If you want to see this all in relation to the current course, if you're interested. Local people certainly would be. I know most of you are saying, well, what the hell is this course? But if you've played this course and you know the area, it's pretty cool stuff. All right. 17 up the hill. So this is a lost hole as a general hole. This is actually, it exists as 2 holes as a current 10th and 11th. The green is the original. It's still there. So the current 11th green is the 17th historic green. And it's split into 2. The 11th hole is kind of like somewhere, the tee box is somewhere down in here now. And the fairway's off to the side a little bit. So it's it's a bigger hill even to get up than it was in this, but it goes straight up the hill. It was about a 470 yard par 5, but straight up the hill back in the day. So I moved the tee backs to make this an interesting tee shot. You got to make a decision. Do you risk it and risk this valley, or do you lay back? If you make this fairway, it's an easy, get on there in 2. From back here, it's still a big poke. So I'm going to, I think, hit the choke tee shot up the hill, just to show you. But if you can get up to that second level, which you can do easy from the historic tees. Now the trick is just stopping it there. Didn't make it. 224 up the hill, 45 feet, 3 iron. See, the woods aren't doing it. That's not a good lie. We're just going to get it up there as best we can. So I didn't do a good job of hitting fairways for you on the par 5s to show you those shots in. But have fun on your own doing it. That bunker is not there now, but you could see, the cool thing is this is another bunker. You could see there was a bunker there offside. This is just a big hill, and it's a big drop off from this green. And the green is kind of like, it's not a bowl shape, but it's just kind of got a little bowl kind of stadium feature to the surrounding land, which I tried to feature and make accurate. But this is one big hill to get up from that 11th fairway. But they play super short, like not even like 300 yards, I think. So you can see that changes the game, right? From two kind of really small holes to one big, big, big hole. All right, we're going to wrap it up at the old 18th. This is in the area of the current 12th hole, which is a par 3. But that par 3 is not, that green is not the original green. The green was up in what is now housing. If you look at the housing now, this is basically in the courtyard of the condos. But it played as a 3 surrounded by bunkers. But again, these 3 bunkers intersecting the tee shot before the fairway. I get Ross signature Ross stuff, perhaps. But I was looking at those on the overhead, saying, what are those? So you can see everybody could overlook this green. There was this kind of flat area with it looked like a fairway cutout rectangle. A lot of photos. Don't know what the hell that was, but that's basically where the tennis courts are now. So I left that thing in there. It could have been just like a little staging area to hand out trophies, or I don't know what that was, but it's pretty clear. So the current 13th green is somewhere off around here or something like that. I don't know where. So but this was a great finish going up to the clubhouse. You don't see a lot of par 3 finishes anymore. But this was just a dramatic setting, I think. If you can imagine, everybody's on that balcony, perhaps with a drink or two in them, cheering you on or giving you stuff. We'll keep this a family show. giving you the business from up there. All right, final putt. And he whiffs. So I didn't play my best golf, but I had a lot on my mind and a lot to tell you. So, you could imagine actually just the view before I go. Look what a view that was from that green. That must have been amazing. So this was an amazing course back in its day. You could still play it and get a feel for it, for sure, in its truncated form. But this was Commonwealth CC, parentheses Newton, Commonwealth Country Club Newton, now known as Newton Commonwealth Golf Course. And it's my pleasure bringing this to you. I thought this is a very important piece of Massachusetts golf history. It's not a famous course in the way that the Lido is, or some of the more famous Donald Ross courses, but this played a pretty significant role in the history of Massachusetts golf, and it's very historical for the city of Newton. So, all of the above are near and dear to my heart as a former resident of Newton, as a Massachusetts golfer, and a big lover of Donald Ross. It was my pleasure to bring this to you once again. Thank you so much for watching. Please do drop me a line in the comments. Let me know what you think. And that's all for today, folks. Bye for now.